welcome to Reading with Even. Let's get on with another bookish video. Today I'm talking about all of my 5-star reads from 2025. I'm doing it a little different than I did last year, because last year for 2024, because I'm filming it in 2026 now, so pardon me, but you get what I mean. So in 2024 I had like a mid-year check-in where I walked through my 5 stars up until that point. And I didn't want to repeat myself, so I ended up ranking all of my 2024 favorites based on like top 20, based on just like which ones would be like at the top. And this year I didn't do, not this year, last year, sorry, I didn't do a mid-year check-in of all the 5 stars. And then I was thinking, okay, do I just do one where I just talk about the 5 stars, or do I try to rank them? And then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be able to rank them just because there are so many different choices. For me to pick just one favorite book of the year is quite impossible, because I actually forgot about some of these, not because I didn't love them, but because it felt like such a long year in so many ways that I just thought, wait, surely I didn't read this one last year. It feels like I read it like 3-4 years ago. I don't know. But ultimately, I'm just going with this approach this time around. I'm gonna go through all the 5-star books of 2025, so last year now. I'm filming this on January 14th, in chronological order, and I know that by the time I upload these videos, they'll be a bit late, but you know what? I needed time off during Christmas. I was not gonna pre-film a bunch of stuff because it was just really busy, and ultimately it's a hobby, so I'm not gonna push myself too hard, as per. But enough about that. Let's talk about the 5-star books. Since I already talked about them in more or less big detail in my wrap-ups or recommendations, I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but just a quick summary of the plot, like 1 or 2 sentences max, and then a sentence or two for why they are a 5-star for me. So, the first book is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. 2 women go on a trip. It is one of their birthday, and instead of going with her on this getaway, her husband decides, you know what, I'd rather just have an affair, and send her on her merry way with her bestie. And they end up in a bit of a vampire orgy where they, due to some chain of events, end up being turned into vampires themselves. And then the rest of the book goes from there. Them having a bit of a Thelma and Louise-esque adventure. And as for why I love this book, the first 100 or so pages were actually very difficult to read because of how real it felt. You know, the stagnation, the relationship that, you know, doesn't work for you, but you're stuck in it, more so not circumstantial, but of your own volition, because you don't know what would await for you should you leave. You know, you're scared, you're confused. It talks a lot about that inaction in our lives, and you know, the limited time that we have, and before you know it, it's been 20 years and you've not done anything that you wanted to, and all that. The fear of aging, of losing your looks and whatnot is also mentioned, aka the vampire theme. That's how it ties in. I thought that was very realistic. I think that's something Rachel Harrison does really well. She manages to put monstrous horror creatures into these real life things that are very realistic, and things that we feel every day, and she just correlates them and creates a story out of it. And it might not be in reinventing the wheel, but it works. And I also loved the friendship between the 2 women in the story. I thought it was really beautiful. I think that, from what I read of this author, she writes that stuff really well, and I look forward to reading more of her work, because I still have, I think, 3 or 4 books of hers to read, so that's gonna be fun. Then I have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I mean, what is there to say about this book that hasn't been said before? It's a semi-autobiographical novel about a woman going to New York City hoping to become a writer, but instead she ends up in a mental institution in the 1950s New York City. And I mean, again, Plath manages to just put everything that she feels onto the page in such a visceral way that I would say that if you're not in a very good place mentally, this is not the book for you, I don't think. Just because the depression and the ideations that she feels, they're so visceral, and they're described so... It just feels like she's picking your own brain and pulling out any, like, bad thought you ever had and pulling it into the surface. And it's definitely something to, well, it's just, I can see why it's such a classic, right? And obviously there are things here that are very timed in terms of certain comments about marginalized groups. You know, it's a product of its time, but again, it's, what can we expect, right? It was written in the 50s. So yeah, it's very, well, you get what I mean. I mean, sometimes I just talk about a book and I think there's so much more to say, but sometimes it's nice to just sit in it, you know, sit in the book, sit in how it made you feel. But yeah, definitely a beautiful book in a very morbidly fascinating and harrowing way. Then I have Mrs. Jekyll by Emma Glass. This is about a woman who is terminally ill. She has cancer and she is trying to come to terms with it, but she has a darker side that is not so complacent with the shitty cards in life that she's been dealt, and this side of her wants to come out and take over. This is kind of a homage / inspiration for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Not inspiration for it. It took inspiration from it, I would say. And oddly enough, I'm glad that I read this book by this author first, because I tried 2 of her other books that she has released, and neither of them worked for me. I ended up DNFing both of them. I didn't even count them towards my stats, because I just didn't... I read like 10-15 pages. I was like, yeah, that does not count as trying to read this book, but it didn't work for me. But this one is definitely an exception to the rule. I just really enjoyed this almost like a hazy fever dream, like mindfuck situation and writing style that was portrayed, and all the gorier elements. This is definitely primarily a lit fic, but it does have some horror stuff in it as well. So it really worked for me, and I mean, the cover is gorgeous. I think that it's really nice, and the length was also good, because sometimes, you know, it's nice to just basically read a book in one sitting and just boom, 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 bash it out. I think that it's perfect for that. And more so because it doesn't really let you breathe. Like, it pulls you through, and this sort of portal, like, this is happening in this fictional world, and by the time that you are up for air to breathe, the book is pretty much done, so you might as well just finish it. So yeah. Then I have Camp Slaughter by Sergio Gomez. I could not believe that I read this one last year. I was like, surely it was the year before or something, because I read so many slashers around September, October, November time. But this is very heavily inspired by Friday the 13th-esque, but like, it's not a copy. It has a life of its own. But this is about a serial killer, well, not in a traditional sense, but like a hillbilly sort of recluse who lives near a campground, an abandoned one, but sometimes people decide, you know what, we're just gonna go there anyway and, you know, have a holiday. And he doesn't like that. He thinks that anyone who comes to this campground is intruding on his rightful property, and yeah, he doesn't really know how to do anything other than kill. So it's fun. I mean, it's definitely one of those slashers where you get a lot of POV from the killer. It's definitely more of the killer story rather than survivors. I would say the one small qualm with the book I had was the fact that the victims, the characters, survivors in this book, whatever you want to call them, final girls, all that. And that's not spoiling how many characters survived this book, by the way, just as generalization. It's not about necessarily their characterization, so a lot of the time they were a bit of more archetypes pushed together into these boxes, like, yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're there for the story, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I would say if you're looking for some super strong character work, apart from The Killer, you're not gonna find it here. I really wanted to read the second one in the trilogy around Halloween time last year, but budgeting just didn't allow for me to buy the sequel, so I'm just gonna not wait for this Halloween of 2026 to read it. I'm just gonna get it whenever and just gonna crack on with it, I think. Then I have Lost in the Garden by Adam S. Leslie. This is a very sort of like folk, kind of like a psychedelic, surreal horror about kind of like the end of the world situation. There are dead people walking around, but they're sort of, it's not treated as a national emergency, really. It's just, oh look, there's some dead people, and we are just a group of young teenagers, young adults, just living about with the resources that we have and all that. It really takes an interesting route there. And then you have the three girls, the main characters. They go to find one of their boyfriends, who went to kind of like what they assume to be the center of it, and he went missing. But apparently, like, everyone who goes to the town where it all started, they go missing. But yeah, that doesn't deter them from trying to rescue him, and you can imagine where this goes. Like I said, it is kind of hard to explain because the whole book, like, it's definitely not in a way that, you know, you're gonna read and it's some sort of like a cosmic deity horror where you're like, what is happening? I don't understand anything that is going on here. Can we not? It's not that, but it's definitely like it's a dream. The whole book feels like a dream that you have when you're sort of sick, you know, have a bit of a flu, maybe like have a low fever, so you're not like fighting for, you know, your life in a sense that, you know, you're so ill that you can't, you know, function, but you don't feel well. Like, you definitely, you know, you should take time off work, and you have those like really weird dreams when you're in that state of illness, and you know, you can't really tell what day it is, what year it is, and whatnot. This sort of feels like that, and coupled with sort of endless summer vibes, like a bit of like clammy heat that cools down a bit in the summer's night, but it's still not cool enough for you to actually feel relief. You know, it's very, very particular. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I didn't expect it to pull me in this much. It is quite thick though. I know some people said that it didn't need to be this thick, and I do agree with that, but it didn't deter my rating. Then I have Small Town Horror by Ronald Malfi. This is kind of a cross. I said it already in one of my videos, I think, when I wrapped this up. I think I called it a cross between it and what you did last summer. We have these 5 characters. One of them moved away from their small town and is trying to live a life, leave behind something horrible that he and his friend group did in the past. But the past doesn't want to be left behind, so he has to go back and help these people who he shared this, still shares this horrible secret with. And I'm pretty sure that's all I can really tell you, because a lot of it would be a spoiler, but it definitely combines almost like, not necessarily detective, but kind of like crimey elements of investigations into what they did, and then you get actual horror elements. I would say if you're looking for super happy vibe, happy kind of ending, this is not the book for you, and again, that's not a spoiler, but tonally it is really dark and well, kind of bleak, I guess, but you know, like, what can you expect from a horror book? Like, a lot of the time, you know that if you go into a horror book, chances are you're not gonna get a happy ending, like, oh my god, actually, no, let's all live happily ever after. We don't, you know, we don't care, like, woohoo. But yeah, just be prepared that, it's definitely a darker book. And then a bit of a tonal change, because, you know, we like to keep a variety. I have The Really Dead Housewives of New Jersey by Astrid Dahl, which is a fictional character from Anna Dorn's Perfume and Pain. So this is written by Anna Dorn. It's just a bit of a marketing ploy. And I've said it already, but I think that this marketing ploy, although it was really cool, I think it actually ended up doing this author a disservice, because a lot of people who aren't necessarily familiar with the type of stuff that she writes, they thought that this was an outright mystery thriller sort of vibe, and they misunderstood the book's point, because this is not that. It has mystery thriller elements, but it's a satire on reality TV, because you have a group of women who participate in this reality TV show, and they start dropping dead, and you do have that mystery element, like who's doing this, but it is just I don't even watch reality TV, really. It's not my thing, but it was just I think a commentary in a fun way on television in general, you know, on celebrity culture as well. It was just good fun, and the writing style as well. Like, I had a really great time with this. So I forgot to get this one from downstairs, but of course I can't not mention Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. It's basically British Gossip Girl with a group of super wealthy people just creating a mess for themselves, really, for no other reason than they can. And, you know, you have all the toxic relationships, all the vibes of rich people who have nothing better to do with their time than, again, make a mess of each other and their lives. And it was just great fun. The writing, I mean, I made a trash kebab comparison, and you know what? I still love a good trash kebab. I don't care. It's good fun, and I'm really looking forward to reading more in the series. So that's gonna be a good time, I have no doubt. And then I have Rouge by Mona Awad. This is about a woman whose mother passed away quite unexpectedly and left her a bunch of debt, and she gets involved in this sort of almost like a cult that she was a part of. And honestly, this one is hard to describe because it's even more fever dream than Bunny. Again, you can clearly see a theme. I've been reading like a lot of surrealist stuff in the first half of the year. Like this is like the third or fourth 5-star in that category, and it's clearly been working for me. I mean, if you asked me to describe exactly what happens plot-wise, I would be like, what? But just the way that she writes and her imagery and everything, it's just it's amazing. And if I had to pick between this one and Bunny, I'd rated both 5 stars, but I would definitely prefer Bunny. But this was still a really great book, and I'm trying to keep it more condensed because, you know, as you could expect, I promised you that I would keep it condensed, and I'm still ranting away. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's just, to be fair, if you were fooled by me saying that I would only speak a sentence on each book, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. But I do try. I clearly just love to talk about books, and, you know, can you blame me? And then I have Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This is a Hercule Poirot book. He ends up stuck on a train that's stuck in a snowstorm, and there's a murderer on the train, and our resident detective tries to figure it out before anyone else gets hurt. And obviously, in the true whodunit crime novel, you get all the investigative bits and everything like that. So again, perfectly crafted mystery, has some great suspense. You know, I can see why it's a classic. I prefer this one to And Then There Were None. I've not read any of her other stuff yet. I'll probably read some eventually. It's not necessarily a priority because a whodunit is not like my top favorite subgenre of like thrillers or mysteries or whatever that I read. But overall, I would say if you were to read any Agatha Christie book, then this one is a good choice. Then I have Death Valley by Melissa Broder. So, bit of a confession. If you watched my updated bookshelf tour video post moving into our new home earlier, well, last year actually, like sort of autumn last year, then you would notice that I mentioned I only kept this book by Melissa Broder, and the matter of the fact is I kind of fell out of love with her as an author, and I think that a lot of my praise for her writing was more because I was excited to be a part of a community that didn't necessarily actually fit my reading, and a lot of the stuff that they spoke about this book, not this book necessarily, but like this author, I really took in at the time, and I was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. But then I thought, wait, I don't actually think like that, because none of her books apart from this one really hit it for me. In fact, there were a lot of narrative and pacing choices in her books that didn't sit right with me, and I still ranked them higher than I would have if I just read them on my own accord. However, this one is an exception to that, and it's a book that I still stand by. So Death Valley is a story about a writer whose father is in a coma, and she doesn't really know if he's gonna pull through. And this one is about a woman who's a writer, and she's really going through a rough patch because her father is in a hospital and she doesn't know if he's gonna pull through, and her husband is chronically ill. So she goes on this desert-like adventure to kind of run away from everything, and she runs into this magical cactus that is shaped like a vagina, because why not? And it's definitely her most, again, surrealist one. Like, you see a theme here, because there are a lot of sort of like mind trippy elements, because she actually ends up getting stuck in the desert and she has to survive. So she learns a lot about, you know, appreciating life and, you know, appreciating everything around her, being more grateful, being more empathetic and understanding. So I think that this is definitely her standout work, and if she releases more books like this, then I might be inclined to pick them up. But basically, I just enjoyed a book that wasn't her obsessing over a man and sacrificing dogs for it. So, you know. But that's just me. If that's your bread and butter, then you eat that, crack on. And then the next one is Mad Woman by Chelsea Beaker. This is kind of a mix between a lit fic and a thriller. So you have a woman whose mother is in prison, and she doesn't want anyone to know that. That's why she lives a completely different life, basically like changing her name and everything, just, you know, pretending that this part of her doesn't exist. And one day she receives a letter from the prison from her mother, and it shakes up her whole world. Like, she doesn't really know what to do. And it just escalates from there. There's a lot of talk about domestic violence and domestic trauma, because things that happen to the main character in her childhood affect what happens to her in the present, the way she communicates, the way, you know, there's a lot of talks about motherhood, a lot of generational trauma, you know, how it translates to our children. Like, there's a lot of this in here. It's a really nice way to balance insightful character in her monologue, lit fic like thoughts with mystery suspense elements. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And then I have one book by Bret Easton Ellis, which is The Shards. I did mention in the same video that I just talked about 2 books ago that I unhauled all of his books but this one. And again, I was forcing to like something, like I was forcing myself to like something so that I could feel a part of something. And I don't regret expanding my horizons and trying out different books, because that is ultimately a good thing for both as a reader and a writer side of myself. But it's not the sort of stuff that I want to keep reading, because it doesn't make me feel good, and ultimately I look to feel good when I read. So I kept this one because this is his kind of like a fictionalized semi-autobiographical story about Brett in high school, like this private school with super rich privileged kids, and he thinks there's a serial killer among his friends that is sacrificing animals and doing these horrible things around their city. So it has a little bit of everything. It has lit-fic elements, it has transgressive elements, it has mystery thriller elements, horror elements, like all of that. So yeah, I think the reason that this still resonates with me and the reason I still kept this one is because it's so different from his other stuff. It's definitely like his most well-structured story in terms of story writing. And again, you do you love what you love, but I was not interested in reading any of his other stuff that I still had left to read. I think I had like 4 books left, and I was just like, nah, actually I don't want to do this. So yeah, but I do still really enjoy this one, and I think that it makes for a fun discussion as well. Then another 5-star, I also left that one downstairs. It is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This author hasn't missed from me yet. Her lowest one I read, I ranked 4 stars. This is, well, nothing's confirmed. Dante, stop! And nothing's official, but it is basically kind of like, more or less, you know, a lore that this book is inspired by Fleetwood Mac, because it features a band that formed in the 1970s, and they were massive for a few years until they ended up explosively breaking up, and then no one said anything about it for nearly, well, I think it was like 40 years or something like that, and then they decided to tell all. And I mean, I just love books about fictional famous people. I love books that talk about music and creation and, you know, fictional messiness. I don't want messiness in real life, but in fiction, it's fun. And I just really enjoyed a lot of things that the book had to say. And there was even like a little twist at the end, which I thought was really good. So yeah, I loved that. It's a perfect book, and I'm glad that I read it. I still have quite a few of her books left to read, which is always fun to know that there's still something by your favorite author that you need to discover. Then I have Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. It's a short story collection of tales of femininity, friendship, loneliness, relationships. There's lots of stuff in here. I think there are 9 stories. I think like 2 or 3 of them I was like, they're okay. But then the ones that I loved, they were like, I think one of the stories called The Great Awake, that's the one. It's one of some of the best writing that I ever read, ever, and I just loved it so much. It's so beautiful, like such a, like the way that Julia Armfield writes, it's just so, she really has a super specific style that won't work for everyone, but for those who it works for, it will do wonders. So I am very excited to see what she does next. Then I have Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, my first read by this author, and it wasn't a disappointment, as you can tell. It's about 3 foster sisters who receive news that their foster home, where their super abusive, monstrous foster mother lives, there was a body that was found of a child underneath the house. And not only do they need to process all their trauma from their childhood, but also they think that they might be suspects, or at least they know more than they're letting on. So this is definitely like a mystery suspense aspect in terms of, you know, what exactly happened, like who does this body belong to, you know, do they know more than they're saying. But it's also a story of trauma and healing and discovering healthier coping mechanisms and trying to, you know, realizing that there's more to life than misery and pain, and that it's a choice and that you have to fight for it. I thought that it was beautiful. And I read another book of hers which didn't quite hit the same, but I still gave it 4 stars, I think, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of her work. Then I have The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. So this is a standalone story about a woman who is the black sheep of her family. She is just completely exiled by the small town and their different values, and it's about her discovering that she's important, that she deserves love, that she deserves to be put first by someone. And it's a lot of things. Again, it's a story of healing, of acceptance, of breaking family generational trauma bonds and realizing, you know, your worth. And it's also a love story, and there's just so much to say about this book. I think I already said a lot of it, but it was a really surprising 5-star, because I was like, I went in with pretty moderate expectations. I felt like I need to adjust my expectations, but it blew me out of the water. Like, this is how you write a book that's meaningful without trying to make it sound pretentious. And yeah, some of the dialogue was cringy for sure, but who cares? It was, when it was funny, it was super funny, but then it really tugged on your heartstrings, and it also had some surprisingly graphic material, so do check your trigger warnings for that. But yeah. And then I have it here. I don't want to take it out because that'll make the whole thing collapse, but it's a newest book by Riley Sager, With a Vengeance. It's about a woman who lost everything because of some powerful people who wanted to make profit of people they deem just expendable, and she organizes this revenge slash justice ride on a train where she will make them confess to everything that they did that led to her family's death, and make them pay. But someone else on the train has different plans. They don't want justice, they just want vengeance, and they want, you know, they want it all and they want it now. And people start dying one by one. So I loved it. I thought it had so much to say about, again, justice versus vengeance, about accepting and moving on from your trauma. Again, like, a lot of books that I liked and gave 5 stars to around summertime, they were about characters in a bad mental place, finding some hope and coming to terms with the bad things that happened to them. So yeah, it really worked for me, and it also had a fantastic mystery element. There were so many twists and turns, and it was just so entertaining, and it was so well crafted. I mean, honestly, if you hate this book, you just hate fun. But, you know, you do you. Who am I to tell you what to like? You know, and I don't actually care that much. So, again, enjoy your day. Go read whatever you want, but this is what I like. And if you're on this channel, I would assume that that's what you like too. So yeah, a really good time with that. I think this is roughly like a half a year point, and to relieve you all, I have a lot less 5 stars in the second half, just because I read less, just because of moving into our home and everything. So this should not take much longer, I hope. So, this was around the time of year when all the house stuff that was going on was getting really stressful. Therefore, my brain was like, yeah, I can't compute. And it became really hard for me to find 5 stars. So the rest of the books, I think from like July onwards, I had, I lost count now, but all the books that I talked about up until this point, I have maybe like half of that. If that, like there was Definitely less 5 stars. I still read some good books, but I just struggled to find something that was like, wow, that's a new favorite. But you know, I think when you're stressed, your brain just goes into an overdrive. And you know, would have I enjoyed a lot of books that I read at that time more if I wasn't so stressed? Maybe, but I also wanted to read to keep my mind off things. So, you know, you can't win really, can you? But I still had a nice little stack. So just to finish this video up, Sweet Pea and the sequel. I read the sequel sometime, I think October, November, so I'm just lumping them together. This is about a female serial killer who is a survivor of her own massacre, and she's definitely not right in the head. Finding out that her boyfriend cheated on her, is cheating on her repeatedly. She is just having it, and her impulses come back to kill again because she's done it before, but it's been dormant until now. And yeah, she's just a female mix of Patrick Bateman and Dexter, I would say, because she kills predators to tell herself that she's not a monster, basically. But it's fun, it's surprisingly gory when it wants to be, it's very morbid in a sort of like sardonic, satirical way. It's just, I had a great time. It's like, these books are long, definitely like between 400 or 500 pages, but they don't really feel like it. I don't know, every time like both the times I read this and the sequel, I had a great time with it. And I'm gonna read the third one in the series pretty soon, like in the next, I'd say in the next like week, if that, at the time of filming this. Then I have Taste Like Candy by Vitolin. Well, that's at the time of releasing. I know the author's actual name is different, and these books are actually getting republished under their real name if they haven't been already. Again, a carnival slasher of senior girls, like a group of seniors who, sorry about a bit of an angle change. My very convoluted tripod support stand that's on a chair, the chair kind of tilted. So anyway, sorry about that. So anyway, like a group of senior girls decide to do their tradition of like a senior game of sorts by sneaking into this abandoned carnival, except that it's not going to be fun and games because there is a killer who is getting them one by one. And honestly, these are some of the most creative kills that I've ever encountered in any medium, film, television, books. It was so fun. I mean, I cared for these girls because in like 50 pages or so they managed to become quite distinguishable, and I really cared for their dynamics, but it didn't deter from the fact that it was super entertaining. Like this is a book for people who love fun and don't want to take it too seriously or overthink it. Like, I would definitely reread it. I need to buy the sequel, but I can no longer get it in its original printing because it's out of stock everywhere. So I'm just gonna get it when the new one gets released, I think. But yeah, it's just so fun. And then I have Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guest, another slasher. I remember this one gave me a 5-star when I was struggling, and I was like, thank God, I still like to read. So yeah, this one is about a group of people who go to an abandoned carnival. Again, a theme here. And they run into more than they bargained for. I was so surprised. There was like actually quite a big twist. And I was rooting for people I didn't expect to root for. I just had a great time with it. I think it shows that you can still get creative with time-old tried slasher concepts and do a great job with it. So yeah, I really loved this one. Such good fun. Now onto something different. So I wanted to educate myself on my you know, heritage and historical context and everything, and I wanted to read a book in my native language for reasons I spoke about on this channel before. I just feel like it's important for me to remember where I come from, and you know, to not get too involved in other cultures and forget mine. You know, it's important to maintain that part of myself. So I read Forest of the Gods by Bali Srog, or Dievo Miškas, the real, like the actual title. But this is an autobiographical novel by the author after he survived a concentration camp during the Second World War, and the way that he was able to make it out. It was through like this really dark, morbid humor, and I remember these things that he kept saying. You know, oh, a bunch of people died in the night. Well, that's great. We'll have more room on the beds. Fantastic. Or there was a scene where the guards' idea of celebrating Christmas was hanging dead people off the trees. And it's absolutely horrifying, things that would break anyone's mind and spirit. And they're portrayed in this like I should not be laughing, this is absolutely horrifying stuff, that is some of humanity's darkest hours. But yeah, it's meant to make you feel uncomfortable, and the way that it's portrayed, obviously there's a lot of historical context. Sometimes it reads a little bit like a historical textbook, but it's not a bad thing, because obviously it tells you exactly what happened at this time. And some of that stuff you might not even have heard of, because obviously it happened to a small country. And yeah, it's a really poignant body of work, and it makes me sad that there were only like 3,000 copies translated to English and printed out. And there is a free ebook on Scribd.com that like you can read without any subscriptions or anything. It's just available online, so I think it's okay for me to mention it. If you are interested, you can read it there, and like you can download a PDF as well, and read it on your platforms, however you use it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. If somehow you can, you should, because it's very poignant, again, that word, and harrowing and important in all the ways. Then for something a bit different, we have Maggie's Grave by David Sodergren. This is a folk horror about a small town legend of a witch who was buried alive, and 300 years later she's out for revenge. It's very gory, very gruesome, lots of interesting things, character work, talks about motherhood. And again, kind of like almost like a bit of a slashery element, even like a bit one-by-one situation being picked off and all that. It really worked for me. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely excited to read more of this author's work. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun. Then another book that I have that really stuck with me was Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. It's about a woman who, she takes things very literally. She ends up burning her father's body and throwing it in the bin after his passing, just because once he joked about it and she took it seriously, and you think maybe she's on spectrum or something. And what she does brings in like the national news and all that, but then it comes out there's so much more than that, because this woman, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot more to the story, but it's really dark. Like, it's definitely a really dark book. Dark. It's not a thriller, really. It's more like a suspense drama, I'd say. But if you have to be, like, strict with it, it could fall under a thriller. Yeah, it's really dark, really messed up, really bleak. I don't want to read books like that often, because after finishing it, it left me really empty inside for like 3 days afterwards. I was like, I need to read something fun now, because this is upsetting. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to just anyone. You have to be in the right state of mind to read this, but if you are, then it's really good. And I would yeah, I would be cautious, but if you can stomach it, it's just yeah, not a fun time, but an insightful time, I should say. And then we just have the last four. We have The Night Circus by Eric Morgenstern. This is a fantasy about two people fated to fight each other to death, basically. But they're in love. And it's very much minimal plot. Dante, come here! Come here! Dante! Come on! Dante, come here. It's very much minimal plot, all vibes, like the atmosphere in this is just fantastic. It takes a long time for the story to kick in, but it's not even so much about that. It's just about being a part of that world and being a part of that. The writing is so beautiful. It's just, the writing reads like ballet. I know that's really a really strange comparison, but it's just so delicate and so intricate and so fluid and so graceful. I mean, it's just, yeah, I loved it. I loved it very much, and I would probably reread it at some point when my brain is in a bit of a better place, because I read it just after moving house, and it took me like 2 weeks to read just because my brain was not computing. But yeah, definitely reread potential there. Then I have They Never Learn by Elaine Fargo. A good for her revenge thriller about a lecturer who is killing sexual predators on campus. And there's a big twist here halfway. It explores a lot of things. It's definitely, like, again, a good for her sort of story, you know, female empowerment in a very messy way. Dante, stop! And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a couple of qualms with it that I described in my wrap-up, I'm pretty sure, but overall it's still a really good book, and I'm looking forward to reading more of this author's work. Then I have Battle Royale by Koshun Takami. Sorry if I butchered that. It's a thick one, but it's one of those books where it doesn't feel like it's that long, like, at all. It's just, sorry if you can hear that. I'm losing books. They're falling out of my lap. It's basically this walked so Hunger Games could run. It's about a government where a program is approved every year to essentially force a class full of students to fight each other to death on this island. And like, the island is a new thing, but they pick a location where no one can get to you, basically, and stop it. And yeah, the students just do that very without much encouragement, I might add. Again, it's very much a theme of, you know, what will people do to survive, you know, at what point will morals get thrown out the window, sort of thing. It's full of action, it's full of suspense, and it's logical, it's scary in a real way. It's yeah, it's definitely an interesting cultural experience, I will say. And then my last 5-star of the year is Near the Bone by Christina Henry. It's a story about husband and wife who are living in the middle of nowhere in these woods, and they think that there's a monster out there, but it's not just a monster that's outside, it's what's inside. And it's a story of overcoming abuse. There are twists here that are very grim. I kind of guessed it. I was like, this is dark. This is very dark. But you have, like, full-on horror elements as well. It read really quickly. I would say the writing is definitely on the more accessible side, in the sense that you will blow through this quickly. Like, you won't stumble onto paragraphs of text that feels dense. So, yeah, definitely not fun. This is not fun, but it's really good, and I would recommend it if you can stomach it. So yeah, and that is it. All of my 5-star books of 2025, and so far 2026 is shaping up to a good start. All the 3 books I read are 5 stars, and I hope that continues, because I just want to read good books that work for me. Stuff that I rank 5 stars, stuff that really hits the spot for me. And yeah, if you read any of these, and if you think that, you know, similar books that I will rank a 5-star, then please do recommend them. Share your opinions. What were your 5 stars of the 2025? Like, what sort of books did you rank highly? What hit the spot for you? Do let me know. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.